Welcome to the Friends and Rivals podcast.
It's the Taylor Ham strain where, someone was just throwing sandwiches around and Blackwood was just licking them all. That fucker.
I miss Taylor Ham. You go to White Rose and get a Taylor Ham and cheese with mustard on it on a hard roll.
Mustard? You put mustard on it?
What?
Let's talk Devils and Islanders. Let's talk Penguins and Rangers. But let's not talk about Flyers because they're a bunch of fucks, which no one can deny.
Episode 11, Friends and Rivals podcast coming at you. I am one of your hosts, Tom Harkness. With me, as always, are...
Stephen Wojtowicz.
Bill Fougere.
Nick Larita.
When it's time to change, you've got to rearrange.
My son is going through puberty, and man, his voice is cracking like you would not believe.
Hilarious is what
it is. So it is hilarious.
Just sounds like your voice now, right? That's what you're saying?
No, he's not as whiny as me. He's got a much deeper voice now for an 11-year-old.
Nobody's as whiny as you.
Thanks, Bill.
Ranger fan.
Thanks. Speaking of whining, we're going to mix it up a little bit. As mentioned earlier on in very early episodes of the podcast, hopefully you all been following along. We mentioned this is not really a place where we're going to give news, but we're going to give our general opinions. And through our first 10 episodes, we kind of realized what we might be doing a little bit wrong. And, we're not going to go in depth game by game. You saw the games. We're watching the same ones. We're just give you our opinions about them. So a new type of format from here on moving forward. Let's see if it sticks. So to start us off tonight, actually, man, are the Devils ever going to play a hockey game again? They just continue.
Well, that's a great question. Probably not for at least another week. I mean, they're canceled through the 15th, which is next Monday. So the earliest they're going to play is when we record next week.
Right. That's actually a Ranger game.
Which will be 6 games in total that now have to be an additional 3 that have to be rescheduled on top of the 3 that already had to be rescheduled.
So say they do actually play a week from tonight. How long would it have been since their last hockey game?
14 days. 14 days. The last game they played was January 31st at Buffalo. But
who's to blame actually for this? Is Buffalo to blame for this or are the Devils to blame for this?
I think the Devils are to blame for their problems and Buffalo's problems.
Jesus.
And the linesmen that were involved in the game, their problems. I guess it comes down to Blackwood. Somehow Blackwood was on the list the longest. And then Zajac was on the list, and then Palmieri. And actually Palmieri went on the list on January 31st after playing on January 30th. It's obvious that any thought they had that on-ice transmission was not possible is wrong.
Well, that led today to some interesting things that Darren Drager reported about changing to the COVID protocols, including more masks, at-home testing, rapid testing on day of games. Nothing, he did mention nothing was set in stone yet, and everything is still being talked about. The Devils are the reason why everything is now.
Well, they're not the only ones. I mean, Minnesota's got a huge outbreak going on. Colorado's got a huge outbreak going on.
No,
there's a couple other teams.
It's just the Devils. Fuck the Devils.
You're right.
I think Nick,
you're a Ranger fan. You know everything. My fault.
Nick's point from last week about fuck the Devils carries true to this week. It's not only fuck the Flyers, the Flyers are another team that are now infected, and fuck the Flyers. I agree. They're maybe in jeopardy of missing the outdoor game against Boston if it goes that crazy, because that's in next weekend.
Do you think they slide another team in?
I mean, I don't know. You did mention Colorado having some issues with COVID, and did they have games canceled? I really haven't been paying attention to Colorado to know.
I don't think they've had games canceled yet, but they're getting very close.
Yeah, because they're another
having
team.
Enough players down.
Right, Colorado and Vegas were playing in that other outdoor game. Things could be in jeopardy, and medical is going to outweigh the outdoor game, right?
Yeah.
You don't think they're just going to say, "Screw it, play"? We need the money, and they're not going to pull one of those.
No, I think they'll find another team to slide in there
on such short notice. You think that's going to happen?
Yeah, sure. The Devils, like I said, the Devils had 3 games canceled. It resulted in, I think, 13 of their future games being rescheduled in some way. So I feel like the flexibility is there for other teams to rearrange.
You changed the schedule so much that teams that you're not even playing on that night that got rescheduled had to reschedule games. Like the Rangers were never scheduled to play on Valentine's Day. I think they were supposed to play the Flyers the day after. But since now they're playing the Devils on the 16th, they moved that Ranger Flyer game to St. Patrick or to Valentine's Day.
Well, it's because they love each other.
Yeah. No. That's exactly the reason why they did it.
So there you go. That's a week away, right? So they were able to change the schedule a week in advance to make that happen. Why couldn't they change the other schedule a week in advance to make the outdoor game happen?
Yeah, well, they don't know what's going to happen, right? 3 players, Giroux and a couple other guys, forced the game versus the Bruins to be canceled tonight. I think probably a smart move to do that before anything escalates any further, or who knows, it may have already. Yeah. But believe it or not, Devils are not the biggest news today with canceling games. Our friends over in the Burke have hired a new GM and president of hockey operations, Brian Burke.
Wait, what happened?
so Billy, who's the new team? Is it Carolina? I figured, I mean, with Hextall as your GM and Brian Burke as the president of hockey operations, there's no possible way you're going to stick with the Penguins, right?
Well, look, here's what's good about these 2 hires.
Wait, time out.
Oh,
it's possible. So we all know you're lying right now.
No, well, how do I put it delicately that the Penguins hired today couple cunts. They definitely hired a couple of cunts.
Oh my
God. That was subtle. Very well said.
Can we say cunt on the air?
I think so.
You think that'll offend any of the 7 listeners?
No, I think the 4 other people that listen will be fine with it.
Okay.
But Brian Burke, I give him credit. Stanley Cup winner in 07 with those Anaheim Ducks. He saw something, like when he was putting that team together, the finishing touches on that team, he was looking around the league trying to figure out how they were going to get next level and what was going to get them over the top. And he saw something in this little known defenseman out of New Jersey that, was flying under the radar all those years, just kicking around, a veteran in the league, but never really accomplished much of anything. He saw something special and he grabbed Scott Niedermayer and signed him up. And obviously they had the other Niedermayer, the great Niedermayer, Rob Niedermayer was already there. But putting the 2 of them together, just put them over the top. It was a beautiful thing. Looking for more of that magic.
I think that's where his genius lies. He planted the seed so early with Rob by having Rob on the team that he knew down the line that would result in Scott coming to the Ducks. Very shrewd move.
It's true. No, I think, in all seriousness, that might have been part of that master plan, right? Hextall, I could see why Hextall was hired, because Mario, if from the day Mario started playing against him in the 80s, Hextall was his bitch. So Hextall is just going to continue being his bitch and now in the front office. I mean, it's a very natural progression. So so in both cases, I'm kind of excited. What can I tell you?
Are you excited to the fact that Brian Burke went on, I think Penguins had on their Twitter feed about an interview that they were doing with Hextall and with Burke about having the right guys in place, having Sidney Crosby there, having Malkin. I couldn't get through that one without laughing about Malkin. About having the right guys in place and to go out and to put other pieces around them to continue to make the run. I mean, that's got to energize you a little bit though, right?
Well, look, that's why he's there, and that seems to be the reason for this combination of hires from what I'm kind of reading about and seeing, people comment on is that Burke is the guy that they're hoping is going to keep the focus on putting the best possible combination on the ice right now, putting their best foot forward and trying to keep the playoff streak alive, et cetera, and trying to be competitive and ultimately, I think they're still paying lip service to trying to compete for a Stanley Cup. I don't buy it personally, but I think that's why Burke's there to keep that process moving forward. And it seems like what they're looking for in Hextall is his track record of lately, being able to draft well, put together good, programs in the minor leagues, and develop talent, and so that it seems like that part of it is focused on the future with Hextall, and the Burke part of it is focused on the now. I don't know that it's going to work. There's 2 different strong personalities pulling in the front office. We'll see where it goes. Maybe by the summer there's only one guy running the show. I'm not convinced otherwise yet, but That's what I think they're just kind of throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks today.
Well, I give them 2 years before they are both fired and the rebuild begins. I mean, that might be generous, but you have to look. How old is Crosby? Crosby's what, 33?
33.
Malkin is around the same age. Letang's around the same age. 36, 37 years old. You're selling these guys off for whatever you can get for them. This is going to be like the
hopefully sooner
early 2000s New York Rangers when they were selling off Kovalev, when they were selling off Brian Leach, when they were selling off all these assets that really never amounted to anything. But it's not going to be that long before this happens.
Yeah, and that's part of the rumor too of why Rutherford was out. I mean, one of the rumors. There's so many things, and you don't know what's true, but that Rutherford might have been trying to broach the subject of trading away some of those core guys, and it was a hard no from ownership that they want those guys to retire Penguins. I don't know what to believe out of that, but no, we are getting to the time where if you can get returns of some kind on those players, I for Malkin and Letang, if you can get a return on them from a team that's trying to go for something right now, I'd be all for it. Crosby's the franchise guy, might be a little bit of a different situation, but I'm not like I'm not the kind of fan who says, oh my God, he's a legend and he has to retire a Penguin. If he has an opportunity, I don't think this year, but even later in his career to go do something somewhere else while this Penguins team is languishing, rebuilding, I don't mind seeing that happen at all. Go do a Tom Brady. Go somewhere else.
Ugh, you had to bring up Tampa Bay, didn't you? Jesus Christ.
Hell yeah.
There was an actual report about Letang to St. Louis for Vince Dunn. Did you hear that same thing? I heard that was one of the reasons why Rutherford got let go or resigned, because he broached the subject of trying to trade Letang. I mean, are you kidding? For Vince Dunn? Why are you not doing that? How is that not happening? You're trading a guy who is in his mid-30s making a lot of money up against the cap. It's a good opportunity to free up some cap space and still get a good young talent on defense, because God knows you guys can use it.
Oh yeah, they can. Yeah, the defensive situation did not improve since last week. Mike Matheson came back. That did not help. I was actually hoping he was going to be out longer term.
Was he the guy at the beginning of the year that you he made his debut and you said it was stellar? And by stellar I mean god awful.
Stellar, you mean worse than Jack Johnson's?
Yeah, that's
the weeks with the Rangers. Yeah, that guy.
Good, you got him back. So there was a good luck with all those with your GM and your hockey operations.
Oh, thank you.
We will be here to laugh at you for the remainder of the season.
I was thinking about that you guys really timed starting this whole podcast together at just the perfect freaking year to see the Penguins, like the wheels just freaking come off of that franchise.
Steve and I have been talking about this for the past 3 years, and we were waiting for this about time to happen. So it was all a ploy against you. You're right.
I suspected as much. Yes, thank you.
So we're gonna go around.
We were also waiting for the Islanders to get so close to the Stanley Cup and then just not make it.
Ooh,
yikes! All right, well, Nick, I think that's your intro to start your 4-point night. So you had a couple of games last week. One was against the Penguins, and one was against the Rangers. Did you have another one in there too? You had another one in there against Caps, or no?
No. We had games scheduled for with Buffalo, which unfortunately they got the Devils COVID, so it didn't work out so well.
The Devils COVID.
Yeah.
Is that a new strand?
It's a new strain. Yeah. There's
Oh my God.
South Africa and the Devils.
It's the Taylor Ham strain where someone was just throwing sandwiches around and Blackwood was just licking them all. That fucker.
I miss Taylor Ham. Go to White Rose and get a Taylor Ham and cheese with mustard on it on a hard roll.
Mustard? You put mustard on it?
What?
What the heck? Why?
What the hell's wrong with you?
Mustard?
Oh yeah.
What the hell, dude?
Oh yeah. Well, listen, Steve. You take ketchup on your hot dog, so you're just weird in general. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't come at me with mustard on Taylor Ham.
What else would you put on Taylor Ham?
Thank you,
mustard up, man. Come on.
Thank you, Willem.
Whatever.
Mustard.
Mustard.
Ketchup on ham. Come on.
Anyway.
So,
Okay.
Steve, nobody is with you on this.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. The SPK, when people order pork roll and cheese, SPK
Yeah.
doesn't, the K doesn't mean ketchup, I
No,
guess.
no,
No,
Steve,
salt,
that
pepper,
means that
ketchup
means
is
mustard.
on bacon, egg, and cheese.
No, it's on pork roll, egg, and cheese
Pork
too.
roll and cheese, dude. What are you
Bacon,
talking
egg,
about?
and cheese. It's on
You're
a
crazy.
bacon, egg, and cheese, or a sausage, egg, and cheese.
It's always SPK.
Nobody puts ketchup on sausage.
When it's on a breakfast sandwich, you do.
No. All right, Nick,
Talking
go
about?
ahead, because these guys are fucking morons.
But there's no egg involved in the White Rose when
Shut
they said
up,
the
stupid!
pecan
Shut up!
and cheese. There was no egg involved. Okay, so there's no need for ketchup. I miss hard rolls.
All right.
You can't get hard rolls down here either. Jesus Christ.
No, you can't. The rolls down here is below. Bread's
Bread
impossible to
is
find.
I talked before like we've done
You
that.
guys moved. Stop whining.
Well, we have to. We have to whine about the things we miss. Shut up.
Yeah,
Notice I don't
notice
whine
it's
about
always
you.
about food. It's never about us.
Not about
They
you.
No.
never whine about
It's
missing
the
us.
food.
It's dicks.
I'll be honest. I miss the that bagel store on next to the post office, Steve. The
Ah,
the veggie burrito for lunch. I go there and get that
mhm.
with hot sauce and jalapenos. Can't beat it. It was great.
That's
like
usually a
$5.
stop when Tom comes back to town. That's usually a stop we make.
Yeah, I don't blame you. All right, so Isles, 4 points in the last 4 games. Kind of a small mini streak they got going on. 2 wins this week. Finally breaking through a little bit of the funk after a 5-game losing streak where we managed 2 points in 5 games, and now we're on the opposite of that. We've got 4 points out of the last 4 games, or 6 points out of the last 4 games. Sorry. So really, turn around a little bit. They're looking better. They're playing back to how they should play. The last 2 games, I didn't get to watch the entirety of the Saturday game as I was traveling. I did catch a little bit of the what I could catch on my phone from here and there, and then watch a little bit of the condensed game this morning. But the game last night, the Ranger game, definitely was a much more complete game. Very much an Islanders game. And aside from getting dominated in the faceoff circle, which was surprising to watch the Rangers go big time in that department, and we've talked about it quite a bit, as that's been a struggle for I think Devils and Rangers. But they did really well. The Rangers, I talked to Tom about this earlier, and I thought they're looking better, looking harder to play against, and Isles squeaked out with some key goals from their fourth line. So overall, the week was really a much better week. My next point, this will be around who's playing well. This was kind of like looking at a few guys. Eberle is finally breaking through again. He's very streaky, so I see him being in this kind of like playing well, playing invisible, playing well, playing invisible kind of streak. I love watching him when he's on. He's got that. He's that sniper we need to have. Every team needs a guy.
Is it game to game where he's like invisible one game and then lights out the next, or is it like
It's
he
a
plays
few
well a
games.
couple of games
Yeah,
and then he falls off the radar? Okay.
he's truly streaky, where he's really like a week or two of just hot, and then he just cools off. And
Okay.
I honestly feel like it's totally his. He doesn't have that killer instinct. Like you'd see it in the juniors. Like you saw it. I feel like when he was, the guy on Team Canada to get those goals, key goals when they needed him in the World Juniors and his juniors career. But when he's playing well, man, when he's like really got that fire and playing like strong off the puck and skating real hard, he can be a game breaker. But he's that guy. He's got to be more on it more than not. He was there in the playoffs, and that was a big reason why they were able to score points. And he had 2 goals in the game against the Penguins and looked really good. Had a couple nice goals. The fourth line's been playing really, really good. 2 goals last night. They're starting to hit their stride again. And they should not be hit or miss. They should be on every night, to be honest. All 3 of those guys. And they got 2 goals back to back in like under a minute and a half or so. And that went from a scoreless game in the third to 2-0 Isles, ready to just keep shut the Rangers down and hopefully get a shutout for Varlamov, who, by the way, has played fucking awesome. Varlamov was keeping the Isles in it early in the game last night and has been just he's been our star. So far this season, he's the guy. He's the guy keeping us in wins. He's got 3 shutouts this season. I also have, if I'm correct, we have 5 wins, if I remember correctly. So 5 wins, 3 of those are shutouts for Varlamov. That's pretty much how it's gone. And he's got the other 2 wins as well, but he's been awesome. And lastly, from that, kind of just who's been playing well, Michael Cole's starting to really figure out what he needs to do in the NHL to keep a spot. His niche is really outworking guys on the boards, being the guy in the line that digs in deep and keeps the puck deep and gets the puck to everybody else, and just try to outwork people. I think if he keeps doing that, he's gonna keep himself on that third line. He might get himself up on the second line some nights, depending on who's injured, where he needs to slot in. He can take faceoffs if he needs to, but he's really a winger at this point. But yeah, I mean, he's been playing much better and keeping a guy like Komarov, hopefully on the bench at some point. So on the other end of the spectrum, from who's been playing well, Isles, I've had a few guys just not really doing that great. Komarov is the guy I've kind of been hoping they would start to bench, but I guess because of his, versatility and, being a Lou guy, and Trotz likes him, plays him, even though he's, doing dumb shit like trying to skate out the puck last night and turn it over right in the blue line. When he had 2 defensemen he could have passed to and, made a better breakout. But, hey, Uncle Leo's gotta do some things sometimes, like dumb shit, like your dumbass uncle that, says stupid shit at Thanksgiving. That's our Uncle Leo. So yeah, he's been playing like ass, and everybody on the island pretty much has been watching the games. He's pretty much tired of watching him play and kind of wants to see Bellows or Doc Hole if he sits for him, or anybody else on the roster. Austin Sarnik, who looked really good in the one game he played so far this season, would be an absolute upgrade over him. Sorry, you gonna say something, Steve?
Every team's got to have that whipping boy. Every team's got to have that one player that everybody in the fan base just wants out of the lineup.
Yeah, and
the Penguins, we got 4 defensemen on that list. Consider yourself lucky.
Beginning of the season, I thought that would be more Doc Hole than Komarov, but Komarov's actually swapped it. He's just not looked good and looks like he's an aging guy that's just playing himself out of the lineup. And Doc Hole's been playing himself in. Now, it's week to week. He could change, right? You never know. But I don't think Komarov's got the spot.
Like you said, he's a Lou guy, so he's going to be in that lineup.
Yep. Bailey has not been playing well as well. He's been having a rough go at it the last few games, I've noticed, and it was pretty noticeable yesterday. He was having a hard time winning battles, and that's his game is keeping the cycle of the puck well, playing good defensively, winning puck battles, doing all the little things, and it's looking like he's having a little bit of struggle out there. Normally he's one of our most consistent guys, and he's looking a little lost or maybe just puck luck. I don't know what it is. Looks like he's in a bit of a funk. On that note, Sorokin didn't play this week, but he's been looking pretty shaky as of his last start. I think he's going to have to get a start probably soon, maybe next week, but I don't know. We'll see how that goes. They've been riding Varlamov, and he's been playing really hot, so hard to see how they.
Schneider was the backup against the Rangers last night.
Schneider was the backup, but he wasn't going to play. So I think I'm not sure what they're doing exactly with that. If they're just trying to, coax.
When Lou was in New Jersey, he was a fan of giving people who weren't playing well the option, like the ability to watch the game from a different angle. So watch it from upstairs in the press box, or watch it from a luxury box when they were a scratch, just to see if maybe seeing the game from a different angle helped trigger something.
That could be
so
it.
Maybe that's why they've dressed Schneider as the backup. Let him.
Yeah. And there wasn't much to gain from being the backup in that game. I mean, you might get in because the star gets shelled or gets hurt. But to be honest, you're probably not playing, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense. And lastly, there, Dobson has been playing a little bit less of 5-on-5. It was pretty noticeable last 2 games. He's dropped off. I think he played around 10 minutes, 10, 11 minutes last game. And he was up in the low 20s in the first few weeks. So maybe they're just trying to switch guys around. Looked like Andy Green's got he had 20 minutes last night. So it might be there's something that they're just kind of rotating guys, giving them a little more minutes, or just trying to, dial back
Balance
on
it.
some of the things.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard to say what that's going on. I don't think Dobson's looked bad, so hard to say what's going on there. But it's something to mention and watch if they're going to try and change some of that a little bit this season. And then the last point I was going to make was around the lines. So the lines have pretty much stayed the same last week or so, and I thought there might be some more variation with more games, but 2 games getting canceled kind of changes that up a little bit. They had a lot of time in between. So what I've really wanted to see was, get some more time with Bellows back on there and Sarnik, as opposed to seeing maybe some even give Bailey or someone a night off, like Bailey or obviously Komarov, but they haven't really changed much in the top line, second line, fourth line. Those lines are pretty much the same, minus Bavillier being hurt and having to put somebody in on the second line. But I just would like to see them do something that rely a little bit more on the kids. Wallstrom's looked good, and he's been doing things that I think has been really interesting to watch, which is he's made some good key defensive plays, which it's going to keep him in the lineup. And I thought he'd be a kid that would be they wouldn't put him in the lineup unless he was scoring, but he's been making some nice plays, breakouts, and a couple pick takeaways, and he's looking like he's going to slowly, in this season, develop into that guy. He could slot up at higher or get a more permanent spot on the team. I want to see what them shake up the lines a little bit with some of the guys that are just kind of struggling a little bit, and I think it's a good idea to maybe do that with the second line. First line's looking really good all around. Can't do much about that. Fourth line, we'll talk about that a little bit later, probably in the conversations when we talk about the identities of our teams. But that second and third lines can probably, in my opinion, be shaken up a little bit and give some of those guys that are chomping at the bit. So 4 points. Who would like to go next? That'd be Thomas.
That was a wonderful transition.
Well, here we're going to go from one part of New York on to another part. Let's go to the island of Manhattan.
Well, as Nick had mentioned, the Rangers had 2 games this past week, and faceoffs has been a really big problem for the Rangers all season. We've very well documented that at least past couple weeks. Shockingly, 61% on draws against the Islanders last night. Ultimately ended up in a loss, but I thought the Rangers played pretty decent last night, but they're not built to win a game like that. And that could be the problem, and that leads to the team's identity, which we will talk about in a little bit. They just don't have the size, the physical toughness to win a game like that, 1-0 or 2-1 in a game like that. Another thing that's becoming a glaring problem, and so that was my first point. Second point is about Mika Zibanejad. If Mika Zibanejad was on the New York Yankees, he would have been put on the 15-day disabled list and then sent to the doctors and found out he had some mysterious crack in his rib somewhere and that had to be out for 2 months. It doesn't seem like he's injured. He's off to an incredibly slow start. 1 goal, 2 assists through the first 10 games of the season or 11 games of the season.
Are you saying that the New York Yankees fake injuries so players can go on the disabled list?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not making that accusation at all. I love the Yankees.
Okay.
Go team, go. But if he were, I think Zibanejad would have been put on the disabled list for some mysterious injury, just to calm everybody down that it's not the player, it's some mysterious injury. So whether any credence goes to having COVID, no training camp, not really having a proper off-season routines, all that other crap that goes into it, Mika's just not performing. And end of last season, trying to figure out how to fit his cap hit in the next couple of years into the structure. Is he going to get that $12 million a year contract, or is it going to be more along the lines of $8 or $9 million contract? Because that makes a huge difference, and this year might even play into that. The power play woes are possibly a direct result of Zibanejad not scoring. Last year on the power play, he was lights out, and their power play percentage flourished because of it. This year, he's not hitting the net, and if he does, he's hitting the goalie square in the chest. And part of the problem is that the Rangers are not getting enough traffic in front of goaltenders. And again, I'm beating a dead horse here and talking about the same things because they are a problem. And getting traffic in front of goaltenders is a huge problem. And that's directly leading to them being Dominic Hasek's and Patrick Waz and Martin Brodeurs against us on any given night, is because we're not making the goaltender move. We're not putting enough traffic in front of him. We're not shooting enough. And there's just not a lot of that going on. Varlamov has played 2 games against the Rangers this year, 120 minutes, no goals. No goals. 2 of those shutouts have been against the Rangers. So I picked on Nick a lot about Georgiev having the Islanders numbers. Well, guess what? Varlamov's got our number this year for sure. And it's a direct result because we're not getting enough traffic in front of the net. We're not making him work. We're giving him easy shots and easy chances on goal for him to stop. All you need is the goaltender to build up a little confidence. Then Panarin gets on a breakaway, tried to open up Varlamov. Varlamov wouldn't open up. He had no choice but to shoot it directly into him. Zibanejad had another glorious chance a couple of minutes after that. Nothing happened. So, it's frustrating to watch as a Ranger fan, and people are calling for people's heads right now. But you also have to remember another thing that I've been talking about all season so far, and that's organizational growth. And that is something that we're going through right now. This team is not built, nor is it intended to make the playoffs. If we do, that's just fucking gravy and a bonus for us right now that we would make the playoffs. But growth, we want to see the kids start to flourish. You're looking at Buchnevich having a really solid start to the year. He's gotten a little cold lately, but he's still having a solid start to the year. Hextall was arguably their best center in the first handful of games before he got hurt. Capo Caco is becoming an all-around better hockey player, far better than he was last year. So you look at organizational-wise, the young kids and growing and developing into something. Adam Fox, I was afraid of him having a sophomore slump this year, killing it this year. So organizational growth, we are growing, we are getting better. We're just not there yet. And people just got to relax. And I'm one of them. I get frustrated when I see, someone not pick up Matt Martin on a back check and he gets a slam dunk goal that, wouldn't care who you put in net. No one's going to stop it. It's these things, it's these growing pains that we have to go through, and we have to learn. The Rangers have to learn how to win these games. They learned a really good lesson and how to win, especially against the Capitals earlier in the week. They need to learn how to win these games, and they're going to start to learn how to win these games when they get, in my opinion, bigger, more physical players involved. And we'll talk about, kind of team identity, but that's your status of the Rangers right now. Mika's not scoring, and it's becoming a huge problem. Face-offs, and maybe we solved something. Quinn said they worked on a lot of the face-off stuff over the past week, not playing the Devils on Saturday, give them an opportunity for another practice day. So, maybe we'll see in nights to come if that is really taken care of, but Mika's not taken care of. And Mika's a big problem. Mika's a big part of what this team is offensively. And without him, all the pressure now goes on Zibanejad Freudian slip, on Panarin, because now it's just all you got to do is stop Panarin. Don't worry about Zibanejad. He's not scoring. Don't worry about anything of that. They're not going to be, they look killer on the power play, but they just can't score. It's going to be, Mika's a big problem. Once he gets going, then we have 2 lines rolling. And now you kind of play that game as who's on, who's off that night. But goaltending, getting people in front of the net, certainly a huge problem. And Ranger fans got to relax. Organizational growth is what we're looking for this year. Okay. And I credit Hockey Stat Miner on Twitter for pointing this out, that if the Rangers signed Buchnevich, Hextall, Howden, and Igor to ridiculous contracts in the offseason, these are the restricted free agents, they're still going to have $10 million in cap space with a roster full of 20 guys. So just relax. Everything is going to kind of take care of itself. And plus, we have other guys coming from overseas. You know, you're looking at Kratzov, you're looking at Lundqvist coming next year. So things are going to be put in motion. But for right now, I think everybody in the Twitterverse is just got to chill. Everybody kind of shut up after the Washington game, and we were on that pretty good roll where we had, you know, 5 out of a possible last 6 points. And then you lose a game like that to the Islanders, and then everyone starts freaking out again. Everybody's just got to kind of relax and remember about the organizational growth, especially me. I really got to remember that at times and just keep in the back of my head that, okay, this team needs to learn. This team needs to learn. And this season is all about learning and all about that organizational growth. So
That's
while you were
what
watching
we-
that game last night, and they were doing better on faceoffs, did you notice like an increase of puck possession time led to more chances, or did everything else look the same?
Here's what I noticed, and I'm wondering, Nick, if you noticed the same thing. How many times did Barzal get kicked out of the faceoff circle?
A good number. He definitely got
good
kicked out.
amount. He got booted. Yeah. I don't know, maybe 25 to 30% of the faceoffs he went to take. He got booted out of the faceoff circle, and a couple of them were like back-to-back faceoffs where he got booted, and I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, you know, happens. I mean, I don't know. It depends on the refs. You know, I think that's generally it's like, hey, they have a certain thing they come in for, and they're little. Some guys cheat if it's faceoffs, right?
Sure.
They're all like, you know, getting their little spots in and
trying to get any advantage they can, for sure.
Whatever Barzy does every time he gets in there, it wasn't flying, and he didn't make the adjustment. So
no, not with that lines in last
happens.
So maybe that was a result of it, that Barzal got booted. I don't know what his percentage on the faceoffs were last night, but he got
wasn't
booted.
good. But
right.
You know, I think but also I think Strome and Nelson went head to head a few times, and they took faceoffs against each other quite a bit in practice. I bet. I didn't see an advanced statistics that shows that.
I just saw the percentage position. I got really excited.
Yeah, but I wanted to see that. I wish I had seen it because I was looking at that and I was like, when they paired up a few times, and I was like, oh man, I wonder if Strome's was. I noticed definitely an uptick in Rangers wins in the faceoff circle, but I was wondering if that because Strome and Nelson went head all the time practice, and I figured maybe Strome was using some advantage to him. Something he remembered, or maybe it was
definitely possible.
Whatever it was,
it's absolutely
who knows?
Absolutely,
who knows? But there was a big difference in the wins for sure. One other thing I was gonna say was you didn't mention K'Andre Miller, but
I'm going to.
He stuck out quite a bit to me.
So yeah, when we talk about team IDs and we talk about other things that we're talking about tonight,
let's go for it.
Certainly going to be on the forefront. He's certainly going to be on the forefront of what we're talking about. But shifting to over to the Burke before they made all their hubbub with their GM and everything else. Billy, what happened last week in your 4-point night?
Nice transition again.
I thought it was a little smoother than what Nick did.
That was very smooth. I said nice transition. So
sometimes a comment is just a genuine comment, a compliment. It's not always a slander,
So as far as the Penguins go, they haven't had like a big COVID outbreak yet. They've managed to only play one time over the last week since we all met up. So yeah, they were scheduled to play a couple against the Devils. Those obviously were postponed. They played the Islanders once this past week, and while the Islanders went traipsing off to go play the Rangers, the Penguins are just sitting there waiting for their next Islander game. They have 2 in a row against the Islanders, while the Islanders are going all around the rest of the division and playing other games. So they're just waiting patiently for that next game. They were a different team after that layoff, after getting, I guess, a few extra days of practice in, where they were not facing the Devils those days. They were a very different team in that game against the Islanders. They really were moving the puck better and moving their feet better and forechecking better than I had seen them all season. And that was really a great game, the game that they played against the Islanders. So, I mean, for the first, I'd say 6 minutes of the first period, there was whistle after whistle, and I'm like, oh God, here we go. There's going to be no flow in this game. It's just going to be a train wreck. And then after those first 6 minutes, they practically only blew the whistle when a goal was scored the rest of the game. Both teams got locked in. We're just going back and forth. It was a 3-3 game, getting deep into the third period. All the goals were at full and even strength, I believe. I think there might have been one situation where there was like a 4-on-4 at one point in the game, but there was no power play until just a couple of minutes left, 3-4 minutes left. I forget what it was. Careless play by Chris Letang, putting the puck over the boards in the defensive zone, put the Islanders on the power play. And that's where the luck runs out for the Penguins. Boy, if they could play games where they don't have to have a power play or kill a penalty, we got a chance to see some really good hockey out of this team. As soon as the special teams get involved, the Penguins are fucked. They cannot kill a penalty, and they can't put a power play goal in that. And ultimately, that was my takeaway from that game. It's like, wow, I was really impressed with how well they played. Obviously, they're still very thin on defense. Mike Matheson played and was a disaster. He's too slow to play in the NHL. But their options are extremely limited. You know, their best defenseman right now, you know, besides Letang, might be P.O. Joseph, a rookie that they were not thinking they were going to rely on at all this season. So the defensive situation and the goaltending situation is not bailing them out. They're not getting big saves from their goaltender in those big moments where you need that reliable goaltender, where the Penguins in recent years have had that reliable goaltender to kind of get them through the tough waves that we all see in any given game, you know, where the other team is just running around with puck possession. They don't have that. But despite all that with their goaltending issues and their defensive issues, they otherwise played a really good game on the island, and they lost because they don't have a special teams that could step up and be that difference maker. It's just not there. So you know,
power play used to be game changers. They used to change the course of the game, and it's really, as a Pittsburgh fan, it's got to be upsetting to see that that's just not there anymore.
Yeah, because the personnel are there. They've still got the guys who were the core of that power play. You know, when you've got Crosby and Malkin and Letang out there, there's not really a reason that those three in and of themselves can't make a power play go, and that's not happening.
What do you think it is?
What do I think? I think it's Malkin. I think I'm going to look squarely at Evgeny Malkin and the fact that he's got no patience on the power play, and that he's going to touch the puck and he's going to put it on the tape of a defender. He's just going to think he's going to pass it through somebody somehow. He's got to see these people there, and it's just not going to work if he's undermining them like that whenever they're playing. But you know, the positive was that, you know, it was a good effort. I thought, especially at even strength. I mean, they were really moving the puck exceptionally well, really moving their feet. Everybody, you know, at even strength, they looked like they were on a power play at times. You know, obviously the Islanders had the same thing going on the other end, because once the Penguins get to their own end of the ice, the defense again is just too thin. So that was number one. And kind of related to that was another point was, I don't know how we judge Todd Reardon yet, the new coach on the Penguins that's in charge of the defensemen. He's got plenty of excuses with the injuries they've had back there for the kind of effort that they've put forth. But you know, the jury's really going to be out on him, because he's got to get whoever is back there. He's got to get them on the same page. So you know, I'm looking close at what he's doing and trying to figure out, you know, how we could kind of evaluate his performance as a coach so far. Because it is an ugly situation with their defense, and obviously again, Matheson not working out. The guys that they signed off the street, they didn't work out. Surprise, surprise. There's, you know, Weber and Churchman were both as bad as Matheson when they were playing. But
look, they needed bodies, Billy.
For sure, yeah,
they needed bodies.
We'll take Jack Johnson back right now.
If only there was a team that had an extra defenseman laying around somewhere.
The problem with that is that they just can't afford him. They just can't afford him right now. And no, we're not taking Malkin back.
So with that, really, my next point, really, to sum that up, is the playoff, their playoff streak, 14 seasons in a row. I think it's over. I mean, it's early in the season. I get that they've got enough points that they're not out of the question at this point, but the things that I'm seeing, they're 11 games in. They've still been playing from behind in every single game this season. If so, two things would give me optimism in a normal season. One, in an 82 game schedule, obviously more time to sort things out. In an 82 game schedule with a normal schedule distribution, like you're playing all the teams in the league a certain amount of times, you knew it didn't matter where you are in the standings. Like I'm a math guy. I know 95 points in an NHL schedule, in a normal 82 game schedule, you're going to get to the playoffs. There's very little chance that you won't. So, if you're kind of shooting for 95 points, you don't have to worry about looking at the standings and seeing what other people are doing. You just take care of yourself. 95 points. There it is. That would be a comfort in a season like this to say, okay, it's not over yet. But in a shorter schedule and in an unbalanced schedule, where we already know 3 of the teams that look like they're going to go to the playoffs in this division, we don't have that chance of saying, okay, maybe we still get in the back end of the 8 in the conference that are going to go into the playoffs. No, man, that window is going to close pretty quick. And for a team that's playing a short schedule and hasn't played a game where they've not trailed at some point through 20% of your schedule, man, it ain't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So those are my points on the Penguins.
Don't you wish they were in the Central Division, where you played Detroit, where you played Chicago, where you played Nashville? And
I wish they were anywhere else.
Yeah.
I wish Western Pennsylvania would be annexed by Canada and they can go play in that division. I'll take that.
And you know what's funny, as a non-Penguin fan, I hear your assessment, and the fact that they have gotten wins would make me feel good. They haven't had a full roster on the back end. The goalie hasn't been playing well, and they're still getting wins. That would make me feel good, knowing that at some point the goaltender is going to play better and the defense might round out into better form than what they've been playing like.
It might not be hurt.
They have maximized their opportunities when they have ended regulation tied. That's what 4 of their 5 wins. They didn't outscore anybody in regulation in 4 out of those 5 wins. They managed to get the extra point in overtime, which is a crapshoot, and that luck's not going to last forever.
Steve, you have 4 points.
Yeah, so
I did that in there. I'm sorry, but
point number 1 is the Devils have COVID.
COVID.
Point number 2 is they had games canceled because they have players that have COVID. Point number 3 is over the course of the week, they added more people to the list of players who have COVID.
Did anybody come off the
list?
My
4th point is
no.
Well, that's funny you should say that. Connor Carrick and Sammy Vatanen in the span have come off the list and then gone back on the list. Like, that's how long this issue has been going on. Players have been able to test off of the list and then go back on.
Holy crap. So they got it twice?
Well, so Carrick was on the list because he traveled home to be in New Jersey for the birth of his child.
Right. And he flew commercial. So he had
right. So he got his consecutive negative test to come off the list, but then went back on. And Vatanen was on the list initially because he had just signed his contract and traveled from overseas, tested off the list, and then now he's back on. So I got to be honest with you, I don't think they're going to play next Tuesday either. Like, I don't think that game is going to happen.
Unless they all start to come off by Friday? They'd have to come off the list by Friday, or at least start practicing by Saturday or Sunday.
They got to get a couple practices in, yeah.
At least 2 practices in. So everybody's off the list. They open up the practice facility on Saturday. That's when you kind of know that Tuesday's kind of a go. Anything later than that Tuesday game is canceled.
They also got to give whoever they're playing next, I guess the league's got to give them assurance that it's safe to play them. I mean, the Buffalo game, you could argue they should never played, but they did anyway.
The government officials up there are furious that game was allowed to happen on that Sunday.
Yeah, and it could have been worse if the Isles played the Sabres. Luckily, it didn't cascade worse.
Well,
yeah, right.
For now,
Devils were supposed to play after that too, right?
Yeah. Oof. And you made mention of some of the changes they made. I guess they've taken out the glass behind the benches. So now they're saying air can circulate better. And they're supposed to be putting in some sort of better filters behind the benches too.
Okay. That's great.
But I don't know if that's going to work. My fourth point, though, is the Binghamton Devils of Newark, after having their first 2 games canceled, got the win last night. Riley Walsh scored the game-winning goal in overtime. And Nolan Foote also got his first goal in his first game. So that was nice to see some actual hockey from this organization being played.
Well, thank God. So, while I was watching the Ranger game and I'm watching the number 1 overall pick, Alexei Lafreniere, and I'm watching him play against the Islanders, and I'm trying to figure out and make excuses as to what the hell's going on. This guy was hyped up by the media so much that he's the next coming of Sidney Crosby. And what we're getting is nothing even resembling that. He had one noticeable shift against the Islanders last night, where he and Howden and Di Giuseppe were kind of rolling. That line was kind of rolling in the first 2 periods last night. And Lafreniere had one really energized shift where he came and hit Noah Dobson behind the net, and he was on the puck hard, and he just, man, you got a glimpse of what this kid could actually be, and then it kind of disappeared altogether after that. And he was kind of invisible before that, and he was kind of invisible in the Washington game. Last time he was visible was in Buffalo when he scored the overtime goal. And I looked at the past, since 2010, the number 1 overall picks, to kind of see what they kind of did that first year. The worst player on that list was Jack Hughes. And granted, it was only he only played 61 games, but after Jack Hughes was Nail Yakupov, and he had played 48 games, scored 31 points. Hughes had 61 games played last year for 21 points. Lafreniere has 1 goal, no assists, 1 point through the first 10 games, now 11 games of the season. Certainly on pace to be well below what Jack Hughes did last year. Is the number 1 overall pick better off going to juniors, or has media and the league forced that number 1 overall pick into your lineup, regardless if he's 18 or 19 years old, when he may not even be ready for that jump? Are we getting into the point where they're just not ready at that age and they still need another year of development? Case in point, if you look at Keandre Miller, he was supposed to come to the Rangers last year and forego a season in Wisconsin. Tony Granato said, no, come back 1 more season and develop further, get that extra year of age, get some body weight under you, and really try to understand the game a little bit better. He did that, and it's paid huge dividends for Keandre Miller and what you're seeing on the ice game in and game out this year. He has just been a force to be reckoned with. And I think he's tied in the NHL with a +7. And he's just playing solid. As an older type of kid, obviously a lot bigger kid, plays a little bit, he plays a different position, and he's not a number 1 overall pick. So there is that difference, but Alexei Lafreniere, I don't want to call him a bust yet, because there's just so many things that you can't even put to factor in this year. But is this going to crush his development for further? I honestly, and try to give me a hockey objective here, and not just fuck the Rangers.
So what did you expect in terms of his point totals in a shortened year?
I think we said somewhere around 25 to 35, somewhere in that range. I was kind of anticipating, but he's less than 0.33%, point a game guy. He's less than half a point a game.
I think it's the huge difference in competition level that really slaps these kids in the face. I don't know if you know this or not, but he did not have preseason training camp games to play in to get adjusted to the game. I was a big proponent of the fact that they should have been playing
No,
preseason games.
you fucking liar. You weren't.
Yeah.
But no, I agree
Right.
with that. But also Quinn had
Why wouldn't you
mentioned
play
that,
preseason games? It's crazy.
that moving him from the first two lines and down to the third and fourth line put him against lower tier talent, so he could maybe match up better against those players. And that hasn't transpired into jack shit.
What else did it do?
It reduces the
It
time on the ice.
changed the people he was playing. No, it changes the people on his line as well.
Yeah, no,
He goes from all his life playing with the other two best players on the team
sure.
to now
No.
playing with the 10th and 11th best players on the team.
I know, but the point I did try to make there was that one shift that he had last night against the Islanders where he came out and just rolled people, was on the puck hard. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that every shift. He doesn't show that type of energy shift in and shift out. It was one shift through 11 games. I don't know. I hope he's not a bust. I really hope he's not.
Obviously, it's too early to say bust.
I do. And, Larry Brooks' timing of this is impeccable. You'll read in the Post tomorrow. It's a very similar article to the point I'm trying to make. But
I mean, if you are going to compare him to Hughes, look at the difference from year one to year two.
My saving grace. It really is calming me down a little bit about, well, next year Lafreniere could be closer to the player that people were projecting him to be this year, with a full off season, kind of an experience under his belt, knowing what to do in the off season,
knowing the toll it's going to take on the body too. Yeah.
I mean, going into the 2019-2020 season, the average for the number one overall pick was 69 games, 20 goals, 29 assists for 49 points. Going in, and Jack Hughes brought that number down drastically to 17, 28, and 45 out of the same games played. Brought it down by 4 full points. But
I think anybody that compared him to Crosby, though, was a little bit overreaching too.
That's
and
too
it was
much.
because being in Rimouski, the same as Crosby,
Yeah.
2 straight league MVPs and the point totals and everything else that he was being compared to. But this is what the media hyped this kid to be. And now we're not getting that. So I got to tell you, I understand, but it's a little disappointing. It's just a little disappointing.
I would say a couple things. One, I didn't think he was even close to the Crosby hype or McDavid or Stamkos or Tavares. I thought he was just, a couple things. One, the draft year, this whole year has been kind of overshadowed by, the league maybe having half a season, if that, right? Combined with the fact that, I didn't see the same kind of level of skill that a couple of those guys had, But hey, I think he's fine. I think he looked okay. And, I was looking back at like number one picks, like the guys that we're kind of talking about outside of the McDavid and the Crosby, who had like point per game or more in Sidney Crosby's, case. You have someone like Tavares who had 54 points in 82 games. And, he played like shit a lot, but he scored points. He was playing as many minutes as they could put him on, and he got points, but he wasn't playing a full game. He wasn't playing the full 60 minutes, end to end. He was not there. Same with, you probably make the same argument with Taylor Hall. I mean, he had 42 points in 65 games, like not too bad, but I'm sure he wasn't playing the full thing.
No, but the last guy to the last number one overall pick to be in the league that averaged a point per game was Connor McDavid, and he only played 45 games that year. I think he break his leg or something. But
yeah,
he had 48 points in 45 games. He was the last guy to be a point per game guy as a number one overall pick.
But he's a special player. Like that's like McDavid.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not a Tavares. He's not an you can argue Austin Matthews in that breath too. But he's not the game changer that we were promised by the media. And it kind of is it's not upsetting, it's just a little disappointing. That's all it is.
Yeah. And Matthews scored 40 goals in his first year. I mean, Matthews was right after McDavid, and we all knew he was going to be very, very good. And when he scored four in his first game, I think it was. Yep. He looked good. And he plays a full game. I think Austin Matthews was the kind of guy that you you expected a first round pick overall. Same with McDavid. McDavid, I think is not the case though, because he's like a generational type of player where he has all the tools to really be like a guy that can just put it all together.
I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, but look in 2017 with Nico Hischier. What did you think about Hischier's rookie season? Were you pleased with it, or were you kind of maybe disappointed?
Absolutely, I was not disappointed at all. He stepped in and took over the number one center position in game one. Did he produce the points? No, but
I don't understand how
wasn't a liability.
I don't understand how you can say he didn't produce the points. He had 52 points in his rookie season. He had 20 goals and 32 assists, which is
He was a
top
line center playing. He was a top line center playing with a wing that was the MVP that year. He probably should have had more points.
Okay. But you
again, stepped onto the ice, number one center, and most importantly, he was never a defensive liability. And I think that's the one thing that you really have to be concerned with the most. He might not score at one end, but is he making bonehead plays in the defensive end? And if he's not, then I think you should be happy with what you got for right now.
And what did you think about Jack Hughes' first year last year? In that same breath?
I thought Jack Hughes absolutely should not have been in the NHL last year.
That's what
I think there was a big push to make him the first player to go right from the U.S. national team developmental program into the NHL without playing any juniors or minors or anything. And that wound up costing him kind of having his stock drop because of it. Now, he worked his ass off during the long break that he had. And you see the player that everybody said he was going to be is starting to develop.
Yeah, when he doesn't have COVID.
Well, he's only had it for 7 days, so.
Well, my perspective on the number one overall players coming in, it's going to be harder and harder as we go forward for them to be these huge impact players in their first year, 2 years, even 3 years. The NHL is getting younger, so any like speed advantage, the game is so fast now. The players are like breaking in their early 20s, and you don't have like a big physical advantage at 18 coming into the league against those guys anymore. You might have distinguished yourself with your skill in the leagues that you were playing in before you got to the NHL. But that's not going to really start to shine through until you physically, kind of grow into yourself, which typically isn't happening at the age of 18. It's really happening more toward your early 20s. And that's where guys that have kind of set themselves apart in their junior career, collegiate career, and so forth are really going to start to show that. It's when they kind of hit that age. That's my expectation anyway. I mean, from what I'm seeing, like, with my kid playing youth hockey in New Jersey, I see the player he is. I see the player, all the kids on his team are so well schooled and skate so well and are so skilled. And he's on a B team in the state of New Jersey, which is a medium hockey market at most. In the United States, where again, the United States isn't even a big hockey market. There's going to be 8,000 kids before high school age playing in these youth leagues, getting 5 hours of ice time a week just in New Jersey. And how many NHL players are going to come out of New Jersey ultimately? There's might be 2 at a time, 3 at a time, possibly. I mean, the entire NHL is just going to be full of wizards in the very near future. I think it's starting now. So to distinguish yourself at that young age is just going to get harder and harder to do. I think you really need, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if they start in the league at 18, if they're drafted and start in the next season, but the expectation can't be that they're going to dominate right away. I think based on personality, is this the kind of kid that you want to have a little more success in the minor leagues or go back to juniors or something like that before he comes up to the NHL? I guess that depends on the player, and that's a decision that teams are going to have to make in development. But if you can make it, if Lafreniere can stick around and be productive on some level at the age of 18, I think it's fine for him to be in the league, or anybody else who's a number one pick to not necessarily dominate immediately, but to just develop in that role.
Yeah, I don't think he looked out of place. And when we were watching the game that last night, I thought he looked pretty decent. And everything you just mentioned, Billy, right there, playing defensively, that keeps you in the game. And it's gonna come to him. The speed's gonna slow down. He's got high-end talent. He should be able to, start to get points. I think in general, though, that'll start to come over time, just gelling with his line mates, figuring out the system. I mean, no preseason, playing juniors is a lot different than playing NHL. And unless you're like a guy that can just do things like an Ovechkin or Crosby or McKinnon, McDavid, those guys that are able to do special things, you don't have to. You can be good at everything. I mean, Lafreniere could just be a really, really solid player and just start to slowly dominate the game in his own way, more defensively, maybe, figuring out like as he gets comfortable with everybody around him. And, I think he's going to be fine. He didn't look out of place by any means.
No, I want more of those shifts where he's more noticeable. Just want one or two a game. That's all I'm asking for. I don't think I'm asking for a lot. Like the entire Washington game, he literally was invisible. And the Islander game, he had that one shift where he did really something well. And then, you don't pick up your back check and poof, it's 2-0.
Well, now this was the Islander game that happened yesterday that he had this shift. So now let's see next game. Does he have again at least one shift? Maybe next game he has two shifts.
I hope
that you really notice him.
I hope that they put a clip of that shift that he went out and he popped Dobson behind the net and was really hard on the puck. He's gonna have to play that way against Boston. I'm telling you that right now. The next two games are against an elite team, and they're gonna need
again. Like I said, he's played his whole life where he hasn't had to exert all of his energy to be the best player on the ice. That takes a while to learn. Like I gotta skate hard for the next 45 seconds, and I gotta do that 25 times tonight.
Yeah, but
that takes time to learn and understand.
I don't disagree with you. And I'm with you 100%. But I don't think we're just putting our trust and blind faith that the coaches are telling him to play that way. Because if your coach was telling you to play a certain way, wouldn't you go out and play that certain way? Not just go out there and try not to look like an idiot. You got to put a little bit of blind.
Again, you've got to learn. If I do this here, if I try and stick check here, am I still going to be in position to block a pass? Or if I make this hit here and I get the puck, what am I doing with it? That kind of stuff. Again, like Nick said, the speed of the game is so fast for these kids when they come in.
Yeah, and Quinn is like that in very, play your position, be defensively responsible, then that will lead to offense. So I hope he's just going through the motions of learning that now.
I you were trying to deflect away this sort of criticism early, but this is the Rangers and they don't develop.
I know, that's why I wanted to.
It's just a fact.
I really wanted to mute you throughout this entire segment because I was waiting for you to say that.
Do you think the NHL should do away with the whole, if an 18-year-old kid gets drafted and doesn't make the NHL roster, he has to go back to juniors? Why can't an 18-year-old player play on an AHL team, on the leagues, get accustomed to the team system in the minor leagues?
Yeah, I don't understand that whole thing either. And I'm a huge proponent of, if you have draft picks and they're just not making the team and you want them to learn a little bit maybe before they get called up later on in the season, let the organizations figure out where the hell to put them. And if they want to put them in the AHL organization, let them play there. I could not agree with you more on that statement.
I'd actually go a step further and say they should take a page out of the I think the AHL doesn't do what it's supposed to do. I think they should take a page out of what the NBA's done with their development league and basically get rid of the AHL or let it do its thing.
I think it has to do no. So I think ultimately what it has to do with though is all these junior teams in all these small towns, if they didn't have these kids coming back, would lose a lot of money.
Like you can't put all these players on an AHL team, so
that's what I'm saying.
Enough players to go around.
I think it makes sense to create like a way that somewhere they can play. And the idea is that, the AHL exists and it's mostly filled with older guys and,
Right,
players that are
right.
not going to they're just there because they didn't make the
Like
NHL.
Matt Molson being the captain
Well, yeah.
of the team.
Right. Like
He's never going
Matt's
to make the
not gonna-
NHL again.
Not again. He's done. He played Tavares for a couple of years, and if he didn't, he probably wouldn't have stayed on anybody's team, right? But they don't have to play on like I don't need the guys that we have as like our top prospects to play at Bridgeport. Bridgeport has traditionally been like the last few years, like almost like the last 10 years, it feels like they've been just god awful, and it feels like they're not doing a good job of developing players. I don't care if they play with like the Rangers prospects or like Flyers prospects and Devils prospects, like just on the same teams. Like let them develop together and have a place to actually get games in against high level, teams and actually develop.
But don't you think Bridgeport would be better at developing players if they had to develop players? If your draft picks went there, don't you think the organization would be better at developing talent?
They do, but the problem is, like they still go there. There's some restrictions, but even though the restrictions are stupid, in my opinion, I don't see you can do away with them, but they still get buried behind guys that shouldn't be ahead of them because they're like, oh well, we want to win the game, and so we got to put you on the third line or whatever. And you're like, what? Like, why is our top end prospect playing on the second or third line?
No,
And to me, it doesn't make any sense.
I think if Lafreniere was playing in Hartford, he'd be a top line player.
I couldn't agree with you more.
No, it's not, and so
Right?
I agree.
So-
It's just the fact that from watching what the Bridgeport's done, and maybe it's a Bridgeport thing, but they constantly have those guys that are like, okay, they've been here 3-4 years, so they're getting first line minutes, or maybe they put up someone like Wallstrom on that first line, but they jump around and they're not like really, there's certain guys that just did not develop there, and it took them a lot of time to get out of it. So I don't know, just my 2 cents on it.
But I couldn't agree with you more. I'm a huge fan of these guys, these early draft picks, and even number 1 overall. Even
Maybe just first rounders. Maybe just your first round pick has the option to play in your minor league system instead of going back to juniors. Everybody after that has to go back to juniors.
I'm with you 100%. I really am. Try and find some way to get these guys in, and who knows, this may be the start of something like that. So hopefully the NHL is listening to us. I know you are. So Steve, you had the opportunity with no games to do a little something on Black History Month, and you watched a movie. What movie did you watch?
I watched a movie called Willie, which was on Willie O'Ree, the first Black player to play in the NHL. Willie grew up in Canada, played hockey like all good Canadian boys, and also played baseball. In 1956, he actually had a tryout with the Atlanta Braves down in Georgia. Well, I guess it was the Milwaukee Braves then, but their spring training was in Georgia. So he went there, he tried out, and the whole experience was really eye-opening to him because of segregation in the South of the United States. And seeing how terrible Black people were treated firsthand really pushed him to say, you know what, maybe this baseball thing isn't for me. I'm going to focus all my efforts in hockey. I want to be the first Black player. He wanted to play pro hockey, and he wanted to be the first Black player in the NHL. He winds up playing professional hockey in Canada, and in 1958 played 2 games with the Bruins against Montreal. He made his debut in Montreal, which was very, very poignant. I guess back in the day, Montreal really was the center of the hockey world.
Sure.
So to have your NHL debut be in Montreal in the Forum was probably a ridiculously amazing experience if he wasn't having racial remarks thrown at him every opportunity they had to throw at him. One thing that I found really amazing was while he was playing in the minors or in juniors, he got hit in the eye with a puck and it wound up blinding him in one eye. And he did not tell anybody except for his sister, who he swore to secrecy because he knew if anybody knew, he wouldn't be able to play hockey anymore. So he made it to the NHL as the first Black player with one eye. Could you imagine if Jackie Robinson had one eye?
So my brother
Couldn't hit a
had,
baseball. There's no depth perception.
my brother had retinoblastoma, and he had his eye removed. And in high school, when he wanted to play freshman year football, they wouldn't allow him to play because he would have a quote unquote blind spot. And then when we took it to the paper, the Star Ledger at the time, and went through all the things necessary to get him allowed to play, and he eventually played in high school, and he had a really decent career for high school football. For his high school team. So and I talked to him about it, and seeing that, and it's just it's very, very difficult to play any sports. It's bad enough to try to drive a car with one eye. Let alone a sport where someone wants to actually take you out and have the senses to know that they're there. So I mean, I didn't know that about him, and man, kudos to him for that, for sure. Amongst the other things, obviously.
Played pro hockey. He played pro hockey for 21 years until he was 45 years old. He retires around 1980, and from 1980 to 1996, he's out of the game of hockey completely, doing miscellaneous security jobs in and around, I think it was Southern California, because he played a lot of the end of his career with the Gulls out in California.
Yeah.
So he retired. When he retired, he stayed there, did a lot of security jobs. And in 1996, somebody from USA Hockey was like, hey, what are we doing? Why don't we involve Willie O'Ree in our diversity program a little bit here? And from 96 on, he's been in the diversity ambassador. And in 2018, members of the community in the town in Canada where he grew up made a big push to get him inducted into the Hall of Fame. And he was inducted in the same class with Brodeur and Martin St. Louis.
That's incredible. I didn't know a lot.
So if you have the opportunity, the name of the movie was Willie. Highly recommended. It was very, very eye-opening. It was very, very touching to see how his community in Canada really rallied around him and made that push to get him into the Hall of Fame in the Builders category.
You know, you look at our teams right now, and you look at, this was the guy that laid the foundation for players like P.O. Joseph, Ken-Andre Miller, P.K. Subban. Shit. Islanders don't. Oh man.
Yeah, we're too white, man.
Oh my God, you guys are a bunch of racists. You guys are a bunch of racists. Oh my God.
Josh Osak's the only guy, I think.
But laid the foundation to get
Varlamov likes hip hop.
He's Russian. He likes a lot of.
He likes club music.
Yeah, a lot of EDM.
But getting back to my point, these guys are not just players on a team. They're pivotal foundation guys for the future, at least for P.O. Joseph and Condre Miller. These guys are cornerstones for the franchises moving forward, and it couldn't have been done without Willie O'Ree. And so we certainly do pay our respects for Black History Month and diversity within the NHL. So on that note, we are going to call it evening. We didn't get to everything that we wanted to get to today, but just leaves the opportunity for us to do things next week. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms, Twitter at friends_rivals, on Facebook and YouTube, Friends and Rivals Podcast. Don't forget to click, comment, and share. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a review. That could be good because it really, really would help out our show a lot. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Billy, play us out.
Oh, my friends and rivals. Flyers fuck, flyers fuck, flyers.